Welcome to Know Your Money, where we will explore our relationship with money and how the psychology of it impacts our financial decisions, as everyone thinks about money differently. In our podcast, we'll be presenting a variety of financial topics in an easy-to-understand way, which we hope will assist you with managing your money.
Hi, I'm Craig Finch, co-owner of Growth Financial Planning, an independent financial planning practice, and I've been a financial planner since 1986.
Hi everybody, I'm Bronwyn Wayner, co-owner of Growth Financial Planning. I'm a certified financial planner, and our philosophy at our company is to grow yourself to grow your wealth.
Hi everyone, my name is Warren Grimsley. I'm a director at Rogue Media and help facilitate this wonderful podcast. My main goal here is to try and understand what these two lovely people are saying so that we can all understand. Hello everyone, welcome to Know Your Money. Once again, we have Bianca here again for D is from Divorce.
Hello.
D is for Divorce, sorry.
D is for Divorce, yes.
Bianca, can you, for the new listeners, give us a little background on what you do and who you are?
Okay, so I'm Bianca from D is for Divorce. It is a passion project of mine that I kind of started after my own divorce, and it serves as a way to just help people navigate divorce and kind of recover. And the slogan is from bitter to better together. So kind of it pretty much tells you what it's about, I think.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Hello, Bianca. Nice to see you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Flipped by. And we chatted a bit in the past 2 episodes about maintenance.
Sure.
Should we just unpack that a bit?
Let's
and
do
how
that,
that works and doesn't work.
Sure. So maintenance is actually probably the biggest cause of acrimony in divorces, right? Because it's money. And nothing pains somebody more than having to pay money over to somebody that you don't really like. And it is something that I find our courts are inundated with maintenance matters, right? Because it's generally women who are fighting to get payment for their kids. And this is a very general statement. It's not for everybody, right? But generally you will find that men will use money, and I've said this before, men will use money as a means of weaponizing, right, the situation, and women will use children. So I think there's a very mistaken idea about maintenance. And it's an assumption that maintenance only covers, let's say, school fees, medical aid, and a house. It's not. Maintenance covers so much more. And when you're calculating maintenance, you're taking into consideration things like pet food and entertainment and contribution to Wi-Fi and the other parent's car and toiletries and groceries and domestic workers and gardeners. It actually incorporates every single day-to-day living expense or a contribution thereto, right? And I think that's where the biggest problem comes in, because men are sitting there thinking, but the child doesn't cost this much to raise, right? Or the non-primary parent, let's say, rather, doesn't have an idea what it actually costs on a day-to-day basis to raise a child. And so that's where the conflict arises. And we've got 2 branches of maintenance, right? We've got maintenance for kids, which is automatic, and every parent has got a responsibility to pay maintenance towards their children.
Is that in law?
That is in law.
Okay.
There's 4 parental responsibilities and rights. It's care, contact, guardianship, and maintenance. Okay. And then there's spousal maintenance, which you have to apply for. And that's for if your partner leaves you and you're a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad, you then have to apply to the courts for them to kind of continue funding your lifestyle.
So that would be on,
so we say.
Sorry, that would be on top of the child maintenance.
That would be separate to the child maintenance, yeah.
So it's definitely shown separately.
It's two separate things, yeah.
And then you just determine how much each child is going to receive?
Exactly.
Who determines that? The court?
So there is a form that you fill out, and it actually lists all of the expenses, right?
So you don't need to go to a lawyer, or you could just agree?
You don't, but I'm going to tell you how to work it out, right? Because you've got your shared expenses. Your shared expenses are, for example, electricity, water, bond payments, domestic workers, whatever that. So that's a shared expense. Okay, so any shared expense shared by the people living in the household, you have to split and work out a child's portion. So let's say, for example, I'm a single mom, I have 2 kids. All of my shared expenses are going to be divided by 4. So you take the number of people living in the house plus 1. Okay, so if you live with your parents, you include them plus 1. Okay, and then each child is given a portion. So in my case, my one child is given a quarter of the shared expenses, my second child a quarter, and I'm responsible for half. Okay. And then maintenance is in a portion of those 2 quarters by the other parent and myself, because both parents are responsible for maintenance.
Okay.
Yes. So those are your shared expenses. Then you've got child-specific expenses, which is then school fees, I don't know what else there is. Cell phone contracts,
Extramurals,
extramurals,
clothing.
medical aid, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So
Do you have like a tool that we can put somewhere and put up?
no,
Or?
we should develop one.
We'll
I'm
do
sure there
that.
are. Look, I haven't ever made use of it. I just sit with my clients generally. And what's difficult about divorce, right, is because if you're living in one household, how do you know what your expenses are going to be if you have to now find your own place?
Yes, yeah.
And so what we do is we get estimations, and we kind of, even if you get like a year idea, then we split it up into 12 months and we work it out. So the maintenance calculations are really quite difficult.
For child maintenance, talking
For
about.
child maintenance, yeah.
And then does it end at a point?
Child maintenance ends when the children are financially independent, should be. But from the age of 18, it will then become the child's responsibility to sue the parent for maintenance.
And you know what I've also realized is some clients don't apply for maintenance through the court. So they just, the divorce goes okay and they agree on it. But if the person dies, there's no court order for the maintenance to continue.
Sure.
So if they got remarried, they don't necessarily, that can just fall away if there's no actual court order. So is it important to...
Well, I think it's important to have it enforced and made a court order because it gives it teeth, right? But
Yes.
if you are paying maintenance every month for 3 years and you stop paying, you've kind of set a precedent.
Yeah, but what's
Sure.
to say if the client only has a life policy and has left everything to their new wife, and the pension fund might give everything to the new wife and not the child? I mean, they do often look through that, but you want the court order there so that the part of the life
gives it
policy
teeth,
or business
you could see the life policy.
yes.
You
What would
could.
be the
Scenario.
repercussions of failing to make payments?
It's a criminal offence.
Criminal offence.
It's a criminal
really?
offence to
Wow.
not pay maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I
So
don't
you
see
can have-
people in
So a
jail.
warrant will be
I
put out
see
for
them
your
running
arrest?
around.
A warrant will be put out for your arrest. You can get garnishee orders. The problem is who's going to pull the trigger to their co-parent, right? Nobody wants to be, and I'm sitting with the matter, actually, I had an experience with the matter of a father, actually, who was owed maintenance by the mother. And he's like, but how do I get the mother of my child arrested?
Yeah, exactly.
And they play on that, right? That's why you can't have emotions. You just have to, unfortunately, enforce it or accept.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. That's why our maintenance courts are inundated with people fighting for rands and cents to make ends meet.
But this is for children now. So
This is for children.
And children will always get some money there. That's the law.
They do.
But the spouse is
should.
another story.
Spouse is separate. So what I will say is if, let's say, your co-parent, biological dad or mom can't pay, you can then look to the grandparents to pay maintenance. And if not grandparents, then great-grandparents. And if not great-grandparents, you can then go to siblings. So the Maintenance Act actually makes provision for if your co-parent falls on hard times, you can look to their parents to make payment or that person's grandparents or siblings.
Really?
Yeah.
Sure.
So if I have a child and
Yeah.
they get married and they can't make their child payments once they have
You can be
their own,
taken to court for
I
maintenance.
can then
Indeed,
be
you
liable
can.
for it.
Sure.
Oh, Finn.
Don't do it.
Don't do it, buddy.
But you'd have to call both sets of parents, right? Because maintenance is apportioned based on each parent's earning ability or available income. So it's not necessarily 50-50 contribution.
Well, it's a good thing, though, isn't it, really, that the
Sure,
child
exactly.
is legally is safeguarded
Yeah, absolutely.
definitely.
to quite a high degree there.
Absolutely.
And as a grandparent, you would do that, I think.
You would do it anyway.
You'd
but I
be
think,
surprised.
But then,
you'd be
there's a
surprised.
certain situation I know about, and I won't mention names, but the husband and wife got divorced and when the child was very young. And the father is incredibly wealthy, and he continued to pay maintenance. And the child now is at university, but hasn't finished university.
Okay.
And he got the sheriff to serve papers to the child saying he's not paying maintenance anymore.
Sure.
And I just thought, how could a father do that to
Yeah.
the child?
I don't know.
And how is that legal? They are still unable to earn an income because they're studying.
They are, but if he's got a part-time job?
This child house sits.
Oh, excellent. But then
But
the child
there's
will then have
money
to
and
take his
emotions
father.
there.
I
It's
just-
not
yeah, sorry.
about-
Something else happened, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think also then it's the child's responsibility to go to maintenance court and say, but hang on, you've been paying for 3 years of my university, why stop now? Right? The courts will examine intention.
How easy is it to get to the courts? Do you have to go through a lawyer?
No, you can do it yourself. You
Okay.
can, but it's a tedious task and it's
Okay.
really time consuming and people hide money. You know, I've had a lot of cases where all of a sudden her mistress is part owner in a business, and like suddenly she's, driving a Lambo and he's pleading poverty, right? And how do you prove that? How do you show that it's not his money or her money? It's really difficult and it's frustrating. I think a lot of people give up, right? But you must remember that it's money for your kids, and that's why it's worth the fight. And justice does prevail eventually, but you also have to manage your own well-being versus the fight.
Do you think the lawyers look at the value in the estate, even though they're opposing lawyers, and they have a game of golf and a whiskey afterwards and say, well, it's worth this, let's play the game until we get our fees?
Sure. I think with divorce as a whole, I think who you surround yourself and who you choose to be in your corner is really, really important.
Okay.
I think that's really, pick one person to advise you. Because everybody's gone through a divorce. Everybody knows somebody who's been divorced. Everybody knows this settlement. My settlement agreement, my maintenance is completely different to somebody else's.
Yes.
So you can't, there's no cookie cutter style for maintenance. And
but that's where you provide a service of mediation,
Sure.
where both parties hopefully will sit down
and make
take
full
the
disclosure.
ego out the room,
Yeah, exactly.
and then make sure that they're both unhappy at the consequence.
They both lose equally, which sounds horrible, but in
it's
essence,
reality.
it is a loss, right?
Yeah.
And you're losing your marriage, you're losing the love you once
Sure.
had. So you've got
Absolutely. And now you're losing a common household.
Yeah.
And I think what women
Household.
also don't realize is that, so I'm very pro men, right? I think I really am, because I feel like men are very hard done by in most situations like this, because women can play on emotions, right?
You mean?
As the breadwinner, but also emotionally, right? They don't get as much sympathy in divorce proceedings as women do. But your co-parent has to live. It's not like now that you're divorced and he's, done you in, whatever the case is. You both still have to live. And you have to understand that you're both now, instead of having one joint household, you've got individual households. So they also have to contribute towards things like bond or rent or electricity. You can't just take him for everything he has, and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
You have to be considerate of each other.
You can't stay in the family 4-bedroom house and expect him to live in a 1-bedroom flat.
Exactly. And in fact, courts have ordered people to sell assets, to say you don't need a 5-bedroom house, you don't need 3 cars.
Yeah.
And if you go into a maintenance inquiry, they are going to look, we've had a case once where we had to do bank statements for a year right? And at a maintenance inquiry, you will sit and the magistrate will go through the bank statement transaction by transaction and say, well, on the 25th of January, you spent 600 Rand at Tops liquor. You don't need that. Cross it out. And they will kind of work out how to make more money available for the kids.
Sure.
It's tedious and it's arduous and it's terrible.
I love that
the children are protected.
Yeah, that is by the sounds of it, most important outcome.
100%, but it's also a really terrible process to go through.
Yes.
And then if you don't, then you've got to get the sheriff involved or the maintenance court to kind of subpoena the banks for bank accounts, because what are they hiding?
Sure.
And then you've got offshore accounts. So it can become a very complex and difficult. And that's when you get lawyers involved, right? When it's a huge estate and people have got a lot available and you're concerned that they're hiding
it's
stuff.
It's sad that conflict between a couple can overshadow the well-being of their children.
Sure.
Wow.
But that's where
without them realizing it most of the time, I'm sure.
Well, sometimes it's intentional, I think.
Really?
that's where I think what you're trying to do is be the light in this instead of the storm in it.
Yeah.
By doing mediation and trying to focus on the common ground and outcome. Yeah.
Just be fair. And I am divorced and I have, my co-parent has remarried and has 2 new kids. And so that's something that I had to be considerate of. I can't now say, oh, you must pay my medical aid for the rest of my life. You now have 2 children that you need to also think about. So I want you to have a great life and I want you to be successful, because the better you do, the better you can do for my children or our children, right? Yeah. And if that's the mindset, if you truly are someone who puts your kids first, then a lot of the conflict will be eliminated. And if men realize that there is a lot more to raising a child than just a house and medical aid and school fees.
Yes.
Right? It's literally feeding them, clothing them, bathing them, entertaining them.
Yeah.
They also, their lifestyle needs to remain as consistent as possible. They didn't choose for you to have them. They didn't choose for you to end your marriage.
Yeah.
And that should be the focus for maintenance.
Well, what a great way to end an episode.
Thank you.
Boom.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, B. I think
Thanks, B.
that
Brilliant.
was great.
Insight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this podcast, would like to subscribe, please visit our website, www.growthfp.co.za. The information we have provided in this podcast is our personal opinion. For more detailed information, please discuss your financial situation with a financial planner.